a majority expresses confidence in SIT and police investigation, and nearly 2/3 believe that the issue has the potential to influence 2027 assembly election. So the big question is, can the Ram Mandir donation controversy become opposition's biggest political weapon? There are other details which I am going to give out during the conversation. Very interesting data that Amitabh Tiwari's survey has brought about. On this issue, I am joined by Amitabh Tiwari, political analyst, the person who does the vote buy, Bhanuchandra Nagarajan, political analyst, Dr. Anil Verma, psephologist, Dr. Ashwini Kumar, Professor TIS, Brijesh Pandey, News9's input editor. But let me straight away go to the man of the moment, Amitabh Tiwari. Amitabh, very interesting data. A lot of people say Akhilesh is right. He can raise the issue. People do believe the police, but when this data talks about affecting the 2027 election, it says it does. Why? If BJP is the custodian of Hinduism and Hindutva politics, then why?
Well, first of all, we have to see that this issue achieved a closure of sorts when the Ram Mandir was constructed in January 2024. So electorally, if you see, it did not benefit the BJP in UP. A sort of closure was achieved. Now, what this issue has done is that it has rekindled the old memories of Babri Masjid demolition, the firing on Kar Sevaks, which the BJP has started to politically target the Samajwadi Party, while at the same time to the devotees it has raised the question of suspicion. It is a matter of astha, it is a matter of faith, and that faith has been demolished of sorts. So that's why we see that people are fairly clear in the questions which we have asked. One is that, does Akhilesh, given the history of him opposing the construction or allegedly opposing the construction and his father's history with Bamari demolition or the firing on Kar Sevaks, does he have the moral authority? So since it is a wrong incident, whatever has happened is not right, majority people, including BJP supporters, say that he does have the moral right to ask this question because a wrong has been committed. Secondly, when we ask whether people have trust on the SIT, again, majority people, almost similar to what the number is for Akhilesh, do currently pose a trust on the SIT, and that includes Samajwadi Party voters as well. One could argue as to how Samajwadi Party workers are also expressing sort of confidence or trust in this SIT or police probe. Then one has to go back to the composition of the vote share of the Samajwadi Party. If you recall, 36.5% vote share of the Samajwadi Party alliance in 2022, almost half of it is Hindu voters. I mean, Yadav, non-Yadav, SC and other category of voters. So there are Hindu voters also in Samajwadi Party. And when we come to the impact, as of now, since the issue is hot, majority people do believe that it could impact. However, the impact would largely depend upon what the SIT does in the next 6-7 months and whether people believe that the actions are justified and the people have been brought to justice, whoever has done the wrong.
Okay. Another interesting part, Dr. Verma, about this survey is, for example, the BJP had been saying that, you guys don't have right to raise questions because, you were fighting against the construction of Ram Temple. The survey says that actually there are people who believe, roughly 60%, that opposition has the right to question the issue of corruption. How do we frame this?
Karthikeyan, so far as my understanding goes in empirical research, there is a lot of work has to be done when you are framing the actual question. Sometimes the questions are framed in such a way that the respondents, they have no option but to go by what you expect. So there you have to be a little bit careful what actually asked. The two questions that have been asked actually by our learned friend Amitabh Tiwari ji, a good friend of mine, I think that a sensible person, any sensible person who believes in democracy would not disagree with this thing that a leader of the opposition, whether he has a moral right or political right or whatever right he has, nobody would question that. Everybody in this country has a right to, because not only the people who are in the opposition, they are hurt and they are unhappy with this incident, but Hindus by and large, the Sanatanis by and large, they are more hurt, and because they had actually their faith, and their faith has been slightly, diluted. So it's irrespective of cutting across the party and political lines, it is the Hindu community which is deeply hurt, and therefore, if you ask that this is anybody has a moral right. If you remember in your first, our discussion, I said it categorically that I would credit the person who raised this issue, because had this issue not been raised, this thing would have gone for years and years and years. So we should be thankful to the whosoever that person is, whether Samajwadi Party or anybody who has raised this question. At least it came to the light, and now correctives are being taken. So that is one thing. That I think that I was not expecting any other response from the respondents. If you say that this is the right thing or not thing, and Akhilesh has a moral right to ask question, he has absolutely a moral right to ask a question. He has been Chief Minister of UP. He is a good leader in the Uttar Pradesh, so he has a moral right and political right also to ask. So that's my take.
Okay, but there's also another interesting data, Professor Kumar. The data is that जो अमिताभ जी ने मुझे दिया है, he has done some caste data. For example, Gair Jatav, Anusuchit Jati, 93.2%. They believe that Akhilesh Yadav has the right to raise this issue, 93%. Now, if I go to the other aspect of it, will it become an electoral issue? Now, in this, the Gair Jatav, Anusuchit Jati Varg mein, 97.4% people say that it should. So, this segment of Gair Jatav Anusuchit Jati is higher, both in terms of questioning, both in terms of it becoming an electoral issue. How do we frame it? Should we frame it from the perspective of subaltern Hindutva?
Kartikeya ji, I think
and I've shared the data with you. I've shared the data. I've been very democratic.
I can see the data, and I can also look at the context in terms of subalternization of Hindutva. So if you look at looking at the data, as Amitabh has always done very robust surveys and survey analysis. Most of his surveys are very, very good and efficiently done. But here when I look at I have looked at the survey, detailed survey also. Perhaps if we need to distinguish between the idea of Hindu resurgence in terms of subalternization of Hindu, particularly in UP, and especially Dalits and lower caste, which is really distinguished from the Mandal, agitation or Mandalization of OBC politics. So we have to really carefully, in a granular sense, we have to look at that part, So the very idea of Hindu resurgence is quite intact. If you look at, the very idea of Ram temple, that's intact. What is the concern here? The concern here among the people, among the supporters, the Hindutva supporters or the subaltern supporters, is about the idea of this trust, the mandir management, the shortcomings in managing the mandir. So when you look at, the larger context of UP politics today, there is no question about and no concern about the competency of Yogi government. There is no, I think, if you look at, I'm looking at from political science perspective, because Ayodhya case is somehow what exceptional, because the Ram temple has exceptional symbolic and political significance, but it has two parts, the movement part. Indeed, the movement part has suffered erosion, but on the other hand, the governance part hasn't suffered erosion. So we have to look at also historically that we don't have any, the temples are known for, all kinds of irregularities across India, south if we look at. I don't see, respecting the survey findings and the survey, but I don't think, based on the historical data and historical analysis of similar scandals or scams, that it is similar to Bofors or Fodor scam or 2G or coal scam. So what is going to happen? What is going to happen that in the short term, these concerns will, will impact the way the governance of the temple has been done. And on the other hand, if you look at, the survey also, a lot of people, in fact, majority express satisfaction in SIT. So that's it. That's something we need to, distinguish and look at how, political scientists particularly distinguish between institutional blame and electoral blame. So the electoral blame is not attributed to the Yogi government in the larger context of the cultural politics of Hindu resurgence. So there, the idea of Lord Ram is intact. The trust of subaltern Hindus intact, So that's what I want to flag at this moment, Karthik.
Okay. Bhanu, your opening comments?
See, this is definitely an emotive issue, no question about it. But there are 9 more months to go for the elections, and there are going to be so many happenings that will happen over a period of time. And there'll be a bunch of issues, a mix of issues that will be before the electorate when the decision is going to be made. So we have to keep that in mind and also assume the SIT produces a neat interim verdict and actually sort of is seen to be providing justice, then that might actually work in favor of the government. And also there is, remember that there is also a good pro-incumbency against Yogi, and Yogi is leading this sort of SIT. So I think people might actually look at it favorably if there is a justiciable decision that comes up in 8-9 months. Also, see, Daniel Kahneman has taught us that in any issue over a period of time, people remember the peak emotion and the end emotion. Assume that this is the peak emotion. If there's a favorable result from the SIT that actually comes out, say 8 months from now, that will be the nearest emotion available for people to tap into while they actually go and cast the votes. So we have to see how the investigation pans out. But having said all of this, there is a sense that with the central government, there's a sense that there's a letdown in terms of governance, in terms of corruption and all that. Hope this is the beginning of a big anti-corruption campaign in India, because even if you look at it, even the 2013 2G and all of the scams have just been not addressed so far. So hope this is the beginning of a big anti-corruption campaign.
Is it possible, do you think? I mean, so BJP, if I have to give them marks, they have got better of all these campaigns. Look at the, what's happening in Jantar Mantar.
Well, I would say that, every government comes and they live to learn. I think the Congress is now, as I won't name the minister, but he has also said that now we have learned how to deal with media. And so we would also, if we come to power, we would also ensure that the 2G screamers won't scream that much. So, every government comes and every government learns, and that is the way,
we only have 10 years left. We have only 10 years left, haven't we?
Whatever it is, yeah. Because now, I still remember, coming out of gate number 4 in the parliament, he said, the only lesson we will learn from the Modi government is how to deal with media and nothing else. So we know how to deal with you guys once we come to power. So, apart from that, I think, there are two interesting things, if you ask me. Right from day one when this was tweeted by Akhilesh Yadav and a couple of people who have been raising this particular issue about theft and donation as far as Ram Temple is concerned, UP Chief Minister has been going hammer and tongs trying to hit out at Akhilesh Yadav, Rahul Gandhi by saying that, that people who fired at car sevaks, they don't have the moral right to raise this particular issue. So I think the interesting part of this survey is that a majority of people believe that they have a right to, raise issue. The other interesting part is, which I would say is that Yogi government has very smartly, initially right from the word go, has delinked itself from the corruption which is taking place at the trust issue. If you remember what Yogi Adityanath did once he visited, once the scam broke out and all, he made sure that there was no Champatra, he made sure that there is no Govind Giri, he made sure that there is nobody who is even have a remote, a stain of taint on his, on that person, be anywhere near him. And Yogi Adityanath has made it very, very clear. So the government is kind of dealing. But it is very, very interesting. Two things. That people feel that Akhilesh and Rahul Gandhi and opposition leaders have a right to raise this particular issue, and they feel that this becomes this gets to become an issue in 2027. How big a part it is, we'll have to wait and watch, because I mean, there are still many a slip between the cup and the lip as far as elections are concerned.
Amitabh, the data the question you have framed इस मामले में राज्य ब्रैकेट योगी सरकार द्वारा गठित एसआईटी और पुलिस की कार्रवाई पर आपको कितना भरोसा है? पूरा भरोसा 43.3%, कुछ हद तक भरोसा है 12.4%, भरोसा नहीं है 26.4%, कह नहीं सकते 17.8%. But if I add 43 with 12, it's roughly 56%.
But the other percent is also not that less. If you combine
half,
the two.
Let me reframe the question then. Is it glass half full, half empty? I think it's a little more than full.
No, essentially, if you see, there are two main parties, BJP and Samajwadi Party. And even 40% plus voters or supporters of even Samajwadi Party believe or are reposing some sort of trust, whether full or to some extent, in the SIT or the police investigation. Because it's a work in progress kind of an investigation, correct? It's not a matter of pride, it's a matter of, I would say, shame. And what also happens is that in such situations where Hindutva or aggressive nationalism or matters of pride, what also happens is that people do not want to tom-tom about these things. Like if you draw a parallel to Operation Sindhu, for example, Rahul Gandhi raising questions of how many Rafales were shot down, how many Indian soldiers died. The answers to these questions, whatever they are not a matter of pride for any Indian. Right? So I think it's a wait and watch sort of a mode for Hindu voters or supporters of the BJP. They want to see, they want to give a chance to Yogi because his popularity, as Sir mentioned, probably remains intact, which we will check in further surveys. And we'll have to see how this SIT performs. If the SIT is able to punish the people responsible, there are better or concrete or tighter SOPs in place. A new CEO or a professional body is made in charge of the entire process, and the BJP is able to gain back the confidence, then the people who are saying that this could impact the electoral results or elections, some of that discontent could be neutralized, correct? And for Samajwadi Party as a strategy, then it would have to move to other bread and butter issues. But if there is still discontent and if the 6-7 months do not produce tangible results, then Samajwadi Party would try to raise this issue, milk this issue along with other anti-incumbency or bread and butter issues which they have been raising.
Dr. Verma, you really raised a very important point that even at the time when the Ram Temple was completed, the political dividend was not for Bharatiya Janata Party in Lok Sabha election. They lost Ayodhya, Prime Minister victory margin came down, number of seats of Samajwadi Party went up in Uttar Pradesh. So if that could happen, when the Ayodhya as a temple, the task got completed, why would it become an electoral issue? If it didn't resonate that way, why should it resonate this way?
Yes, Karthikeya, I think that, you see, at this moment, people so much hurt internally that they are actually not able to, and not willing to respond to this question whether you will vote and whom to you will vote. Their prime moment is focused on this scam or whatever you say last in this term, but certainly theft and
two panelists in my show were fighting. One was saying it was not scam, and not me. And the other was saying don't use the word scam, it is a theft. And one panelist was saying no, it's a scam. Theft is a watered down word.
Let us keep it to chori or dakati or whatever it is. But people are more concerned about this issue, and they are so much hurt that asking at this moment is a political question how your electoral behavior will change after 8-9 months. I'll give you, Karthikeya, a very interesting example of the last Lok Sabha elections. Last Lok Sabha elections in Uttar Pradesh, we did an empirical study in Uttar Pradesh only, and from January to March, the approval rating for the BJP and the Modi was 60%. And when we did it during the election campaign, it came down to 40%. So sometimes the narratives much before the elections, they don't matter. Narratives during the elections, they are very, very important. And the 400 vote par became such a huge, dent for the BJP that they could not defend it. They took it probably very, lightly. But the Samajwadi Party and the Congress were absolutely at their best to communicate to the Dalits and the OBCs that they should have jolly well done with the 300 par. Why should they be wanting 400 par? They want 400 par to demolish the constitution, abolish the reservation. And this discourse completely changed and transformed the Dalits because there wasn't any option. BJP versus Congress and SP. So entire Dalit and OBC transformed and shifted to the BJP. That is one thing which I want to say. The second thing is that Akhilesh has been a little too eager and hasty to declare that they will neither get chanda nor they will get votes. I think both the things would be probably in future, I think they will be demolished because chanda is a matter of faith. When once I donate a faith, I forget about what is happening to the chanda and that I will continue to do in spite of this chori and all. And as you can see, the rush in the Ayodhya has diluted. It has continued to rise in fact. So that is a different thing. Second thing is that I will vote for not. Do I have a better option? That also has to be figured in. Because the kind of options that is available to the Hindus, probably especially the Congress and the Samajwadi Party, they do not have a very track record of pro-Hindu, things. And that's why they are now owning Hindutva and all. So people will figure out after 8-9 months when this thing, SIT has been cleared and this thing has diluted and people are a little calm to configure their voting behavior. I think therefore Akhilesh has done a terribly wrong thing to immediately on the first and the second day jump to a conclusion that they will neither get chanda nor they will vote. Probably, I think he would be terribly wrong.
Or Dr. Ashwini Kumar, is it from the both sides? I think one gentleman today said पैसा इसलिए चोरी हो गया क्योंकि faith की कमी थी.
Faith, हाँ, पैसा उन्हीं का चोरी हुआ जिनकी faith में कमी थी. Satish Mahana said it.
Satish Mahana has said it. I think the beauties are being added from all the sides.
I think metaphorically, it sounds like more poetic than political. That because of the lack of faith in terms of the people going to the temple. I have also visited Ayodhya. I've done a couple of my ethnographies also in the temple town comparing Ayodhya and Banaras. So what I'm trying to suggest here in terms of the debate today on Ram temple theft, that the Ram temple hasn't become irrelevant in the larger landscape of the BJP and RSS politics in terms of a civilizational resurgence. So that we look at theoretically and then combining with Amitabh's findings and survey findings, I would suggest that, the Ram temple, I'm looking at the question also as someone who teaches surveys as well in the classroom, that I'm not getting, the bigger picture from the survey because the Ram temple is today part of a broader electoral and social coalition. It's not the sole axis of electoral competition, today in India. If you look at recent assembly elections in the country, which clearly indicate, I have written about it, spoken about it, the structural and the institutional weakening of the regional parties. So Kartikeya, picture abhi baki hai. So let's think about how weakening of the regional parties structurally will respond to the larger electoral challenge where the Yogi ji has a great advantage. He has emerged. Whenever I speak to people from Yogi, they say like, quoting Diwar, कि आपके पास क्या है? Like, when Sasi Kapoor said, मेरे पास माँ है, they said, हमारे पास Yogi ji हैं. So in terms of a strong leader, in terms of the law and order, in terms of the infrastructure, and somebody who is, building a broader social coalition at the state level through combination of welfare delivery, Hindu identity, organizational mobilization. So I suggest that the single controversy right now is a matter of concern for the party and the government, but it's not going to substantially alter voter behavior down the line, 7 months.
I think my takeaway, Bhanu, is I think what Professor is saying, the mascots are more powerful than the issue. Like Narendra Modi or Yogi Adityanath, what they represent in context of politics is far more powerful than what has happened in the Ram temple. It is like Indira Gandhi in 80s and 70s. So many things happened, but she represented far more important values for the voter behavior to change, barring 77 or even Nehru in his time. So, I mean to say, look at his third elections. You know, look at his third elections. Despite so many problems, he was still there because he represented things which were far more important to the electorate than the issues themselves. Tell me if I have understood your logic, Ashwini.
Yeah, perfectly. I mean, like what I'm trying to suggest here, the broader, structural landscape of the party competition in India. So therefore, this is a matter of concern, symbolically and emotionally. But I'm also looking at the national scenario, Kartikeya. Is there, something like a national, discontent, arising out of the Ram Temple theft? If you come to the south side, all these are very common facts.
I think, so maybe you have given me a great idea. Maybe, I'll go to Bhanu. Maybe I'll do it some. I think it's a lack of thought leaders like Ram Manohar Lohia. That was, lack of thought leaders in opposition. They were not winning elections in the 60s, but they were thought leaders who were respected. People like Madhu Limay, Lohia. Bhanu, I will do a show on that. Bhanu.
No, actually, you were just saying what I wanted to say, Kartikeya. See, if you look at the 2024 election results, of all the assembly constituencies in Faizabad, Lok Sabha, in which Ayodhya falls, except for the Ayodhya assembly constituency, Samajwadi Party was pretty much ahead and they won actually all the other assembly constituencies. So you can sense that even in the Ram Temple, in the Ram Mandir wave, people voted for other things also. Okay, so caste combination is obviously the most obvious one, but there are multiple things that people think about when they cast their votes. That's number one. Number two is like what you were just mentioning: lack of thought leadership and lack of continuous campaigning and energy from the opposition, lack of credibility as well. Like the one of the first things that you said. So the opposition, for some reason, is unable to match the energy and the continuous campaigning that the BJP is in. That is actually going to sort of affect the issue from the opposition point of view. So what Akhilesh is going to do from now till the preliminary results of SIT are going to come, probably close to the elections, is what it is going to be Akhilesh's campaign on this particular issue. If he loses this window, if he waits for the end, and a positive results comes out of the SIT, then Akhilesh would have lost the whole opportunity. So I think the thing that you mentioned, thought leadership, competency,
thought leadership also the way you frame it. You can respond to it. Let me just ask you a question because we need to close the show. It's like if you recall, I was just doing a research on the sort of slogans which Congress would raise against the opposition. We remember the slogans which the opposition had raised against the Congress. For example, शासन करना कोई खेल नहीं, इनके दियों में तेल नहीं. Now that was used by the Congress. I can just recount multiple, but I'll just focus on that. In that context, I'll narrow it down.
You know, Kartikeya, I would say one thing that
and one more. If you recall, people remember कि वो कहते हैं इंदिरा हटाओ, मैं कहती हूँ गरीबी हटाओ. वो कहते हैं इंदिरा हटाओ was given by whom? Pilu Modi, and Pilu Modi had he had a difference of opinion with Swatantra Party's leader Rajaji, and George Fernandez was for it, and the entire thing was that this was a negative campaigning and Indira would rework it to her advantage, and she did rework it to her advantage, and that's how the Swatantra Party broke subsequently.
There are two things which I would like to draw your attention to.
You can correct me.
2014,
Anyone of you can correct me if I'm getting it wrong.
And 2024. 2014 election was that people were able to build a narrative against the Congress party, led especially by Anna Hazare and rest of the people, that that this government is corrupt, and it was amplified by 2G, coal scam, and so many scams and all. So there was a narrative which was built at that point of time that that this government is corrupt, and it was added with a degree of machismo which was provided by
it's not going to stick to BJP?
Prime Minister. Let me finish.
Okay.
So, by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and that is how he rode to a phenomenal power in 2014. 2024, it was a completely different gig. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, popular, was overarching, all-encompassing. He was comparing himself to, like some sort of divinity, and people believed it. Yes, I'm not going to ridicule him for that. I mean, people believed him, that he was some sort of divinity. But the opposition found one issue which punctured the entire narrative like anything, which was that if they get 400, they will change the constitution. And look at the way punctured. And which state? Uttar Pradesh. Samajwadi Party got more Lok Sabha seats than Bharatiya Janata Party in that election, and had it not been for Odisha, where BJP swept Odisha, replacing this thing, the BJP would have given their worst performance under Prime Minister Modi, and given the kind of, the entire, the election machinery and everything which was working for him. The issue is to find an issue which connects and resonates with people. You may have a thought leadership, you may not have a thought leadership. But the point which I was saying is that the issue of, which was also ably aided by certain BJP leaders, Diya Kumari and others, that whether it is resonating with people or not, this particular issue which we are discussing, it causes more hurt. It causes a lot of hurt. But is it caused hurt enough to change the government? No, it does not do that.
Okay.
So the issue of resonance. Otherwise, all the big overarching narratives get punctured so brutally. And I mean, Indian political history is replete with such examples.
People will hold down Amitabh on this survey. This is not going anywhere because this survey is an important survey. But thank you that you did this survey, because it gives a lot of good data points. And I thank all of you for joining me on this riveting conversation. But to my viewers, this is all I had on point 1. But don't go away, because in on point 2, I am taking you through a special discussion on the future of naval warfare.
Your roots, thumb in your bones, rose be your amul, दूध and go for goal. आगे आगे बढ़ती है दुनिया, अमूल दूध पीती है दुनिया.
Why has Iran stopped the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz?
They want to attack us, they want to target us, so we have to defend ourselves.
They are punishing countries outside the region as well, like India, and like countries in South and East Asia.
The big problem that they've created now is the closure of the strait.
Ultimately, the main purpose of this exercise is, frankly, to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Whenever they've got involved in a war on behalf of somebody else, there isn't been just an altruistic purpose.
For centuries, naval warfare has been defined by aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, and warships. But that definition may have changed forever, because for the first time in combat, the United States has used unarmed, unmanned surface vessels or sea drones to carry out a strike. These vessels were unmanned but completely armed. The target was Iran's Bandar Abbas naval base, the country's most important naval hub on the Strait of Hormuz. According to US Central Command, multiple Corsair autonomous surface vessels struck a submarine and warship repair facility, a critical installation responsible for maintaining Iran's naval fleet. The attack itself is significant, but what makes it historic is how it was carried out. Instead of risking the warships or sailors, the United States sent a small, remotely operated sea drone packed with explosive to hit the target. No crew, no captain, no boarding party. Just autonomous platform navigating towards their objectives before detonating on impact. Military analysts say this marks another major step towards what is increasingly being called non-contact warfare. We have already seen this transformation in the skies over Ukraine, where drones have rewritten the rules of aerial warfare. We have seen India's resolve in demonstrating its own technology